Welcome to my live teaching learning session of Indian Economy 2 BECE 146. In today's session, we will discuss about labor laws and regulations. But before starting this labor laws and regulations, I would like to discuss the previous session topic FDI, foreign direct investment. Foreign direct investment is that investment which is invested by abroad or foreign investors. FDI means investment by non-resident entity or person resident outside India in the capital of an Indian economy under Schedule 1 of Foreign Exchange Management Act, Regulation 2000. Started in 1990, presently only few industries where FDI is prohibited. Otherwise, in each and every industry, government has liberalized and government has increased the limit of foreign direct investment. Before independence, FDI was nothing. But at the time of independence and before 1991, which is known as pre-reform period, at that time 49% foreign direct investment were permitted. But after post-reform period that is started from 1991, at that time government has raised this limit from 49% to 51%. At present, in some industries, government has fixed the limit of FDI near about 74%, and in some other industries, 100% FDI is permitted. So investment ceiling is the limit or maximum limit. Investment limit in permitted sectors are being gradually removed or phased out. Investment in permitted sector are permitted to 100% except some restrictions which are known as automatic route or without taking permission from the government. Those industries which are prohibited or to invest beyond the ceiling or maximum limit needs to be permitted by government or its agencies which are known as FEMA or Foreign Exchange Management Regulation Act of 2000. Next is FDI policy. What is FDI policy? FDI policy is that policy which fix the limit of foreign direct investment in specific industries. Like in food product industry, government has decided to permit 100% FDI under government approval route for trading, including through e-commerce, in respect of food products manufactured or produced in India. Opening of the food product sector to big food MNC. MNC is multinational corporations. Multinational corporations are big corporations which are started by uh, abroad or in host countries. Like India is a host country. India invited foreign direct investment from abroad, and they bring their money and they bring their assets and invest their money in our country, in India, or in any other developing nations. That is called multinational corporations. At present, multinational corporations bring their own capital, which is called FDI, foreign direct investment, and they are widespread in all over the world, and they are expanding their business activities in each and every country. And in defense sector, in the last year, the government has opened the sector for foreign investment up to 49%. In the beginning, FDI was not permitted in defense sector, but in the last year, government has opened this sector for foreign investment up to this limit 49%. Previously, foreign investment above 49% were allowed depending up under approved route. approval route. After the change to the policy, foreign investment limit in defense is increased to 100% through approval route. It means generally it is 49% FDI is permitted in defense sector. But if government, if there is a investment, if any other foreign country invests their money 100%, then they have to take approval from government. Then they can invest 100% investment in defense sector. Third is pharmaceutical sector. The new policy permits 74% FDI under automatic route in brownfield pharmaceuticals, and government approval route beyond 74% will continue. The sector witnessing several foreign firms taking over Indian firms is called brownfield FDI. Hence, the government has restricted brownfield FDI under automatic route. It means, in simple words, we can say that in food product industry, 100% FDI is permitted. In defense sector, 49% FDI was permitted in the last year, but to impose some restrictions and to impose some limitations, government can increase this limit to 100% through approval route. And in pharmaceutical sector, 74% FDI is permitted. Next is current regulatory position under FDI policy of 2017, in which some sectors in which FDI is permitted, that is called permitted sector, and in some sectors where FDI is not permitted, that is called not permitted sector. So 100% FDI under automatic route is allowable in construction, development projects or infrastructural activities. 100% FDI is permitted, which includes development of townships, construction of residential or commercial premises, roads or bridges, hotels, resorts, hospitals, educational institutions, recreational facilities, city and regional level infrastructure, townships. In this, all these sectors, 100% FDI is permitted. And not permitted areas are, FDI is not permitted in an entity which is engaged or proposed to be engaged in. Number one is any real estate business which is defined as is dealt with below, or construction of farmhouses, or trading or in transferable development rights, TDR. TDR is transferable development right. In these areas, FDI is not permitted. So this is the current regulatory position under FDI policy of 2017, in which government has fixed the limit of FDI in those areas where 100% FDI is permitted, and the other areas where no one FDI is permitted. Next is this is also trade and investment sector topic, which is known as bilateral trade, regional and multilateral trade agreements. You know that at present all the economies are open economies. All economies are engaged in doing business with rest of the world and doing trade with rest of the world, which is known as exports and imports. And if there are two trading partners only, if bilateral trade agreements are those agreements which held in between of two countries only, multilateral trade agreements are those agreements which held in between of among many countries, and regional trade agreements are those agreements which involve a group of countries that are within a geographical region. Their main objective is to promote trade liberalization. For example, free trade by reducing or eliminating trade barriers like export duty, import tariffs between members. And WTO is the World Trade Organization. Previously, its name was GATT, GATT. G means general, A means agreement, T means trade, and other T means tariffs. So GATT means general trade agreements on trade and tariffs, general agreement on trade and tariffs, which is known as GATT. It was started in 1947 and India was the founder member of GATT. But in 1995, its name converted from GATT to WTO. WTO is a wider concept in which bilateral trade agreements, regional trade agreements, multilateral trade agreements, all those trade agreements are included in WTO. So WTO trade agreements are multilateral, which include so many countries, WTO member countries around the world, and they require member countries to reduce trade barriers or restrictions. At the same time, WTO always promote free trade policy. Free trade policy is that policy in which there is no restrictions while doing international trade, but free trade is beneficial for only developed nations, not for developing countries. So, in India, government always follows protective trade policy in which government import tariffs or import duties and export duties, and the limit of imports or import quota government fix to restrict imports and to promote exports and to protect domestic industries from foreign competition. So these are known as trade agreements, which may be bilateral, which may be regional, which may be multilateral. Bilateral trade agreements between the two countries, multilateral trade agreements, many countries, and regional trade agreements involve a group of countries that are within a geographical region. Next is this is the conclusion of previous session class, which was the fiscal policy based on fiscal policy, which is also a macroeconomic policy and investment and trade policy. So trade reforms programs have two main objectives. The first is to help to raise economic growth and employment generation by improving resource allocation and economy wide efficiency. And the second main objective of this trade reforms is to help improve the balance of payment by strengthening the competitiveness of the external sector and expanding exports and efficient import substitutes. It means if we want to increase our economic growth and we want to increase employment facilities or employment generation in our country, then we should follow these trade reform programs, which help us to achieve this target of economic growth and employment generation. And this trade reforms programs also help us to achieve or to improve our balance of payment, and by increasing the exports and reducing the imports and substituting those imports which we are previously importing from abroad. If we produce those goods and services which we are doing imports from rest of the world in our country, if we substitute those products from our products, it means we can solve the problem of unfavorable balance of payment. So balance of payment should be always in balance or in surplus but not in deficit, because deficit balance of payment or deficiency in current account always not good for the nation. So this is the conclusion of previous session class, trade reforms and investment or fiscal policies. Now, next topic which we will start today, that is the labor laws. So we will discuss about now labor laws. What are the meaning of labor laws? What labor laws uh, introduced by the government for the security of the labor? So, introduction in this topic, labor laws and regulations in India. Labor welfare activity in India was largely influenced by humanitarian principles and legislation. During early period of industrial development, efforts towards workers' welfare was made largely by social worker and other religious leaders, mostly on humanitarian grounds. Before the introduction of welfare and other legislation in India, the condition of the labor were miserable. You know that labor is the main producing factor of production. We know that there are four factors of production. One is land, second is labor, third is capital, fourth is entrepreneur. And in which labor is the most important or main producing factor, because without labor land is useless, without labor capital is useless, without labor entrepreneur can't organize all factors of production and increase the productive activities. So labor is the most important factor of production, and if labor condition will be miserable, then labor will not give contribution in the production activities and producing the goods and services. So labor condition should be improved, and labor condition and should labor should provide we should provide to labor healthy atmosphere in which labor works. So labor welfare activities in India was largely influenced by humanitarian principles and legislation. Next is, what is labor laws? Now labor laws, what is the meaning of this labor laws? Laws is rules, regulations. Labor law or employment law is the body of laws, regulations, administrative rulings, and precedents which address the legal rights of and restrictions on laborers and their organizations. It deals with many aspects of relationship between trade union, employers, and their employees. You know, labor work in industrial sector, labor work in factories, labor work in offices, so many construction areas where labor works. So if there is a not a good relationship between employer and employees, then definitely it will create conflicts or disputes. And if labor will not be satisfied from the working conditions of the premises or factories or companies, then labor will leave the job, and employer will also be not get benefit from this type of activities. If trade unions are not bargained, then wages of the labor definitely will be lower. So if labor wants to take higher wage rate, healthy atmosphere, or good working condition in their offices or in their factories or in their any industrial sector, then they promote trade unions, because trade unions fight for their right, and and they always want to establish healthy atmosphere or healthy relationship between employer and employees. So labor laws always deals with many aspects of relationship between trade unions, employer, and their employees. The final goal of or the final objective of labor laws is to reduce the difference between the employer and the employee, which leads to industrial growth and growth of a nation. Employee works for employer, but if employer exploit the labor, then labor will not do good work, and labor will not do satisfactory work for their employer, and the production will go down. So it if we want to increase the productive activities of the nation, if we want to improve the industrial growth of the country, then we should promote labor laws, and we should provide healthy atmosphere to labor in factories or in companies or in any other sectors where labor works. Next is labor legislation in India. Labor legislation refers to all laws of the government which have been enacted to provide social and economic security to the labor or workers. So labor legislation is the rules and regulations which is set by law and enforced by law to employer, that employer should provide all facilities or good healthy atmosphere or good salaries or wages to the laborers, so that labor should be satisfied from their job and they work continuously and they give more and more contribution for their productive activities. So the evils of industrialization have led to labor legislation. It means industrialization has so many evils, so many defects, so many demerits. That's why this labor legislation started. Because previously, when labor works, that time labor work as a slaves, and employer or owner of the labor exploited labor and take more and more work and give less wages to the laborers. In this case, labor were exploited too much and their life was very miserable. So to uh, remove these problems and sufferings of laborers, government introduced this labor legislation. So now the state has a direct interest in the industrial peace and prosperity. These acts are aimed at reduction of production losses due to industrial disputes which held in between of employer and employees due to so many exploitative behavior of the employer, and to ensure timely payments of wages and other minimum amenities. Amenities means facilities. Minimum means basic requirements. It means employer should give at least the amount of the salary to the workers or to the laborers, so that labor can satisfy their minimum or basic needs which is necessary for their survival. So labor act or labor legislation, the main aim of this act is to reduce the production losses due to industrial disputes and to ensure timely payment of wages and other minimum facilities or benefits of the worker. History of labor laws. This history of labor laws tells us that how and what are the main cause behind the origin of this labor laws. Labor laws arose due to demand of workers for better condition. Second is demands of employers to restrict the powers of worker in many organizations to keep labor costs low. International Labour Organization, which is known as ILO, was the first organization to deal with labor issues at international level. In India, the law relating to labor and employment is also known as industrial law. The earliest Indian statute to regulate the relationship between employer and his workman was Trade Dispute Act, which was started in 1929, Act of 7 of 1929. Ultimately, Industrial Dispute Act, which is known as IDA, brought into force on 1st April 1947. So in India, the labor and employment law, which is related with labor and employment, it is known as industrial law. And it was started in 1929 by the name of Industrial Dispute Act. Ultimately, this IDA brought into force after independence, first on 1st April 1947, at the time of independence. Before independence, now the history of labor laws before independence is the movement to improve the working conditions of Indian labor started with the passing of the first Indian Factories Act 1881. It means labor laws and legislation was started before independence during the time period of 1881. uh, at that time, first Indian Factories Act was started in 1881. The deplorable conditions in which labor worked in the textile mills in Bombay during those days, as testified by the Factory Commission of 1875, was the immediate cause of passing of the Act. The Act applied to factories employing not less than 100 persons and using power. It means this Factories Act only applicable only on those factories which give employment to 100 workers or 100 persons, not less than this, and using power. Under this act, the employment of the children below the age of 7 years was prohibited, while those between 7 to 12 years were not to work for more than 9 hours a day. It means this Factories Act fix the limit of workers. If in a factory more than 100 workers are working, then this act or their rules regulations will be applicable on that factory. But if workers are not 100 or less than 100, then this act will not be applicable. And under this act, the employment of the children below the age of 7 years was prohibited, while those between 7 to 12 years only 9 hours a day, not to work more than that 9 hours a day. So this is the main Factories Act rules regulations which were started in before independence in labor laws. There are so many types of labor laws which started by the government before independence and after independence. Conditions of work. First of all, Factories Act was established. Factories Act 1948. Next is the Contract Labor Regulations and Abolition Act 1970. Third is Shops and Commercial Establishment Act. Next, this three acts are under this conditions of work. Conditions of work has three acts. One is Factories Act 1948. Second is Contract Act, Labor Act, which was started in 1970, and third is Shops and Commercial Establishment Act. Second is Wages and Remuneration. So wages and remuneration, government has set up so many laws. One is the Minimum Wage Act. This Minimum Wage Act was established in 1948. And second is Payment of Wages Act. Payment of Wages Act was started in 1936. Third is Social Security. Social Security means social security is that security which provided by the employer to the employee, like provident fund, old age pensions, securities, unemployment allowance, and other securities, other benefits while they are deceased. If labor is deceased and want to get medical benefits, then social security laws will provide all these benefits to the workers. So Social Security under this Employees Provident Fund Act 1952 was started. Next is Workmen's Compensation Act 1923 was started. And third is Employees State Insurance Act 1948 was started. And these three acts are in under Social Security Act. And fourth is Employment Security and Industrial Relations In this Industrial Dispute Act, which was started in 1947, the Industrial Dispute Act, and second is Industrial Establishment Standing Order Act 1946. So these are the types of labor laws which we can classify into four parts. One is conditions of work, second is wages and remuneration, third is social security, and fourth is employment security and industrial relations. And in each area and each this law, government has set up so many contractual act or so many labor laws for the benefits of the labor. Why we need for labor reforms? Now this need for labor reforms tells us that why this labor reforms and labor laws and labor regulations were set up by the government, and what is the need of this labor reforms. Recently, the labor code on industrial relations bill was introduced in the Lok Sabha, aiming to streamline industrial relations and help India to improve on the ease of doing business index. So there are so many. If we want to maintain healthy atmosphere in work, or provide good working conditions to the workers or laborers, and we don't want to lose the productive activities and don't want to lose the production capacity of the workers, then we should provide minimum wages to the laborers, and provide social securities to the worker, and give remuneration so that they can satisfy their basic needs of the life which is necessary for their survival. And we should maintain a healthy or good relationship between employer and employees so that industrial disputes can be removed or reduced. So, as per the World Bank, India's labor laws are among the most restrictive in the world. There are over 200 laws relating to labor in India, 40 central laws, and 150 state laws. India has to urgently reform its British colonial era labor laws to prevent its demographic dividend time period is 1921 from turning into a demographic disaster. So, exigency of labor reforms. Why we need for labor reforms? So these are the points which tells us the need of labor reforms. One is to provide social security benefits to contractual workers. Second is to remove restrictions on growth of medium small scale enterprises. Next is to boost employment growth. Next is to facilitate the unorganized or informal sector to transform into the formal or organized sector to enhance ease of doing business. Next is consolidation and simplification of numerous central and state labor laws. And next is streamlining of minimum wages. So hence the tough labor laws ultimately lead to lower benefits to the labor class and affect the ease of doing business adversely. So we need those labor reforms which actually give benefit to the laborers, and to increase the employment opportunities, and to provide healthy and good atmosphere in working conditions, and employers should provide good working conditions to the workers, or contractual workers should provide so many social security benefits so that they can give maximum contribution in productive activities. So these are the points which tells us the need for labor reforms. Next is objectives of labor legislation. What are the main objectives or aims or goals of labor legislation? The main goal of labor legislation is preservation of healthy, safety, and welfare of labor. First of all, as we know that labor is the main producing factor, and labor, without labor we can't produce anything. So if we want to increase our industrial sector growth, and if we want to increase the productive activities or production in each and every sector, then we should provide healthy, safety, and we should provide so many welfare schemes for the labor. Second is maintenance of good relationship between employer and employee so that industrial disputes can be reduced. Third is safeguard the labor from profit-seeking exploiters in the cutthroat competition era. You know that the main goal of employer is to provide less and less wages to the worker and to achieve maximum profit. Employer or industrial entrepreneur always interested to make maximum profit at a minimum cost. And the cost of production involve labor cost, raw material cost, capital cost, which is known as interest, and all these costs, employer wants to reduce this. So if employer wants to reduce the all cost of production and to increase their own profit only, then definitely employer or entrepreneur will exploit the labor and give the lowest wages to the laborers. And if employer will give less wages to the workers and do not provide any social security or benefits or any other pension schemes, then employer working condition will be poor. And if employer working condition will be poor, employer will not be satisfied their working conditions or their salaries, then they will not employee will not give more and more contribution in productive activities. In this case, the dispute between employer and employee will rise. So if a government introduce this labor laws, labor legislation, and strictly follow all these labor laws and labor legislation, then definitely the cutthroat in this cutthroat competition era or in this competitive era, exploitation will be removed and healthy atmosphere or good working condition will definitely started in each and every industrial units. And next objective of labor legislation is to promote harmony between employers and employee. Because good relationship between employer and employee must be exist in each and every industrial sector, then production activities will increase and industrial growth will occur in the economy. Next is Trade Union Act. This Trade Union Act started in 1926. This Trade Union Act means any combinations, whether temporary or permanent, formed primarily for the purpose of regulating the relations between workmen and employers, or between worker or between employers and employers, or for imposing restrictions conditions on the conduct of any trade or businesses and include any federation of two or more trade unions. Trade union play very important role to increase the wage rate of the workers or laborers, because trade union fight for their right and they set the level of wage. At least labor should get that wage or that wage rate or that salary, for that salary which can satisfy their basic needs or basic requirements, or which is necessary for their survival, like food, clothes, shelter, education, health, sanitation. So trade, if an employer exploited labor, then trade union play middleman role, or trade union are called intermediaries in between of employee and employer. And trade union always fight for providing good salary or good wages to the employees and to reduce exploitative behavior of the employers. So this act was started in 1926. Next is if anyone registration of trade union, any 7 or more members of a trade union may apply for registration of a trade union in Form A for the registered applied area. The application shall be accompanied by a resolution authorizing 7 ordinary members of the union to make an application for registration to the union and a treasury challan of rupees 500. It means if we want to register for this trade union, then this is the criteria for the registration of the union. Next is the silent features of the Industrial Employment Standing Order Act of 1946. This act is to require employers in industrial establishment formally to define conditions of employment under them. First of all, if any employee or any worker or any labor, if a worker went to get the job in any establishment or in any industrial sector, then first of all, employer should define the conditions of employment, terms and conditions must be defined clearly. Whereas it is expedient to require employers in industrial establishment to define with sufficient precision the conditions of employment under them and to make said conditions known to workmen employed by them. It means the working conditions or terms and conditions must be clear uh, and must be clearly defined by the employer to the employee, so that employee should get the knowledge regarding the terms and conditions of the work. If he is satisfied from those conditions and those terms and conditions, then there will be no dispute held in between of employer and employee. And if employer hide the terms and conditions from the employee, then definitely it will bring the dispute and it will create so many problems in industrial sector. So this act, Industrial Employment Standing Order Act, mainly uh, based on this fact of that it requires employers in industrial establishment formally to define industrial conditions of employment under them. Next is what is an industrial dispute? Industrial dispute is, well, first of all, Industrial Dispute Act was set up in 1947, and industrial dispute defines the disputes in between of any disputes or differences between employers and employers, employers and workmen. Dispute may be workmen and workmen, dispute may be employers and employers, dispute may be held in between of employers and employees, which is connected with the employment, non-employment, terms of employment, or with the conditions of labor of any person. All these are known as industrial dispute. And this act was set up in 1947. Now, Industrial Dispute Act, how it works? What is the mechanism? What is the system of Industrial Dispute Act? So in Industrial Dispute Act, there are three parts of this act. One is conciliation, second is arbitration, third is adjudication. In conciliation, work committees set up by this act, conciliating officers and board of conciliation. And arbitration, in arbitration, court of inquiry and exist in this arbitration. And adjudication, for adjudication or for taking benefits uh, by the worker or labor, there is a labor court, there is a industrial tribunal, and national tribunal set up by the government for solving the disputes between the employer and employees, workers and workers, employers and employers. If any person or any um, labor which are working in industrial activities, if any dispute held in between of that industrial unit, then labor or worker or employer can solve this problem and can take the help from the this adjudication system, which is labor court, industrial tribunal and national tribunal. So this is the mechanism or machinery of industrial dispute system. Next is Industrial Dispute Act 1947. As per Section 2K of Industrial Dispute Act 1947, industrial dispute is defined as any dispute or differences between employers and employers, or between employers and workmen, or between workmen and workmen, which is connected with the employment or non-employment, or the terms employment, or with the conditions of labor of any person. So this is Industrial Dispute Act 1947, which main aim is to solve the disputes between all these persons who are work in industrial activities or in any industrial sector. Now next act is Payment of Wages Act 1936. The Payment of Wages Act 1936, the main objective of this act is to ensure regular and prompt payment of wages and to prevent the exploitation of a wage earner by prohibiting fines and deductions from his wages, because sometimes the employer cut the wages of the laborers and put some fines and penalties to the workers or laborers without giving any reason. So this act provides security. So this act provide ensurement, or this act ensure that regular and prompt payment of wages and to prevent the exploitation of wage earner by prohibiting fines and deductions from his wages, to regulate the payment of wages of certain classes of employed person. So this is called Payment of Wages Act, which was set up in 1936, and the main aim is of this act is to ensure regular and fixed payment of wages and to prevent exploitation of a wage earner. Next is Minimum Wage Act 1948. This is very famous act. At present, Minimum Wage Act always revised time to time. And first of all, minimum wage was 80 rupees of workers. Then it raised to 80 to 200 rupees, then 250. At present, 400, at least 400 rupees for 8 hours working. Labor will get from the employer. So Minimum Wages Act, this act main objective is to provide minimum wages to the workers working in organized sector. And why this Minimum Wages Act revised time to time? Because as well as inflation increases or price level increases, then we should revise this Minimum Wage Act for the benefit of the worker, because if at present when inflation rate is too high and if labor will get only 80 rupees according to this Minimum Wage Act, how a person can survive from this less amount of 80 rupees? So government, according to the inflation rate, government revised this Minimum Wage Act, and government revised this minimum wages under this act of 1948, which aim is to provide minimum wages to the worker working in organized sector and to stop exploitation of the workers. And third objective is to empower the government to take steps of fixing minimum wages and to revising it in a timely manner, and to apply this law on most of the sections in organized sector. Only this act is applicable in organized sector, not in unorganized sector. But in India, here 94% country people are engaged in unorganized or in informal sector. only 6% or 7% people are engaged in organized sector. It means this law only served to 7% people of this country, not 94% or 93%. Next is the Payment of Bonus Act 1965. This act also under the section of Social Security Act, the Payment of Bonus Act. The dictionary meaning of bonus. Bonus means something or to the good, especially extra dividend to the shareholders of the company, distribution of profits, and gratuity to workmen beyond their wages. If anything, which is given by the employer beyond the wage, beyond the salary, beyond their remuneration, that is called bonus. So bonus means extra dividend to the shareholders of the company. Bonus means distribution of profits. Bonus means gratuity to workmen beyond their wages. So this act came into force on 5th September 1965. It was amended twice in 1985. Next is the Equal Remuneration Act 1976. This act, with its clear from its name, the Equal Remuneration Act 1976. This Equal Remuneration Act provides for the payment of equal remuneration between man and woman. To man and woman extends to the whole of India. This act makes it obligatory on the part of employers to pay equal remuneration to man and woman workers for the same work or work of a similar nature. If man and woman are doing same work, and if they are engaged in same business activities and doing same work, then they should get same salary. There should not be any discrimination between their wage rate or between their remuneration. So in order to make the wages equal, prevailing wages shall not be reduced, but the higher rate shall be maintained. So this is the Equal Remuneration Act tells us. Social Security in India, it is the sum of all government regulations and provisions that aim at enhancing the people's living condition, including legislation, laws, regulations, and planning in the field of old age, wage, unemployment, and the social exclusion, sickness, and healthcare benefits. So, Social Security give benefit in those cases, in those persons who are not able to work, who are sick, or who are healthy, not who are not healthy, who are not fit, and in old age when people are not able to work, at that time this social security law will provide benefits to those workers who give their services to any industrial sector from the last 30 years or from the last 40 years. At the old age time period, government or this act provides so many benefits to those persons. So income security measures such as food security, employment, education, and health, housing, social insurance, and social assistance, all these benefits, all these securities included in this social security schemes in India. Social security in organized sector. In India, the organized sector, only 6% total population of this nation engaged in organized sector, which take benefit of all these laws, labor laws and legislation. The principal social security laws enacted in India for organized sector workforce are like Employees State Insurance Act 1948, Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952, Employees Compensation Act 1923, Maternity Benefit Act 1961, Payment of Gratuity Act 1972. These legislations provide social security benefit like medical benefit, employment, injury, and maternity benefits, insurance, pensions, and gratuity, etc., to industrial and factory workers. Social security in unorganized sector. We know that 94% of the Indian working population engaged in unorganized sector. Unorganized sector is quite heterogeneous or differentiated in terms of types of workers who work in the sector and the geographical spread, providing social security benefits in a phased manner to a vast workforce in the unorganized sector and making sustained efforts in this direction. Existing central labor laws relating to social security proposed to the consolidated with the Codes of Social Security 2009. What are the main acts under this social security which is proposed by the government during this time period of 2019? First is the Employees Compensation Act 1923. Second is the Employees State Insurance Act 1948. Third is the Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1952. Fourth is the Employment Exchange Notification of Vacancies Act 1959. The Maternity Benefit Act 1961. The Payment of Gratuity Act 1972. The Sign Workers Welfare Fund Act 1981. The Building and Other Construction Workers Welfare Cess Act 1996. And the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act 2008. All these acts exist in central labor laws which related to social security benefits for the laborers. Next is principal social security laws and programs in India. There are two sectors, one is organized and other is unorganized. Only 6% country population engaged in organized sector, 94% people are engaged in unorganized sector. In organized sector, in brief, we can say that the Employees State Insurance Act 1948, Employees Provident Fund and Miscellaneous Provision Act 1952, the Employees Compensation Act 1923, Maternity Benefit Act 1961, Payment of Gratuity Act 1972, and the Pension Fund Regulatory and Development Authority Act 2013. All these acts were set up by the government in organized sector. But in unorganized sector, only two laws. One is National Social Assistance Program and second is National Pension Scheme, Swalambam Atal Pension Yojana, started in unorganized sector where 94% people are engaged. Labor reform steps taken by the Indian government. Government prohibited child labor under the Act of this Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Amendment Act 2016, which provide complete ban on employment of children below 14 years of age. Maternity Benefit Amendment Act 2017 has increased paid maternity leaves from 12 weeks to 26 weeks, and government increase so many acts, and government made some modifications in this labor laws and legislation to provide better and better opportunities, better benefits, and social securities and welfare to the workers or laborers, so that healthy and good working conditions should be established in a country, and productive activities or industrial growth can be promoted. Now, conclusion of this topic is effective implementation of labor legislation or regulations, adherence of labor standards, and social dialogues at the workplace contributors to improved industrial relations, better performance of workers, higher enterprises productivity, and sustainable employment. All these labor laws and regulations, which is set up by the government after independence to provide more and more benefits to the workers and laborers, and so that employees can give maximum contribution in productive activities, and to improve the industrial relationship between employers and employees, and to increase the productivity of the industrial sector, and to achieve sustainable employment. These labor laws help to achieve all these targets. But some challenges facing industrial relations in the country, once addressed, will ultimately reduce industrial actions like strikes, lockouts, increase labor productivity, increase income for people, and reduce supervision cost for employers. So all these are known as labor laws and legislation, which was set up by the government to make healthy and good atmosphere in working conditions of the industrial sector, so that industrial growth and industrial production can increase. Now this topic has finished. In next session we will discuss about next topic. Thank you.